what I thought I'd like to do is just talk a little bit about my background, if you like, because I think that's helpful. So, my name's Joe Lafferty, and I have my own business, and I live and work in Dundee. I'm old enough to remember 1979, the 1970s and the Scotland's oil campaign, and I was a young left-wing idealist who thought nationalism was somehow evil, dark, and was very strongly against the nationalists as I saw them at the time. And over the years, I've never really been involved in politics. Actually, I've always been a little bit left of centre, but never really engaged. But what's really struck me was when this vote came out, that I thought this is too important not to think about. No, this is too important not to consider. So being from a business background, I thought, well, I better look at the numbers, better look at the facts, or try and find the facts, which is not straightforward by any means in this debate, because there's a lot of spin. So what I did was I went to the GER, the Government Revenue and Expenditure Service, which is run by the UK government and not disputed by any of the parties. And I began to find some astonishing facts, which really shook me actually, because I used to think that Scotland was too wee, too poor, too stupid. And that's an easy one. If you're from Scotland, it's kind of like in the genes. We kind of have this assumption of not quite inferiority, but it's always good to be able to blame someone else for your problems, and we couldn't really do it anyway. So I thought we were too poor. I thought we were subsidised by Westminster. I thought that we should keep our heads down, not make too much noise, because they might tighten the purse strings and we needed them. Imagine my astonishment when I figure out that in the last 33 years, Scotland has been a net contributor to the UK Exchequer. 33 years. Scotland's been a net contributor to the UK Exchequer. Now, if you go on the Business for Scotland website, you'll find lots of these facts and lots of these background statistics, which are not in dispute. That Scotland, if it was independent tomorrow, would be the 14th wealthiest country in the world. England's 16, France 17. England, rest of UK. So there's no doubt. I mean, even David Cameron, although I think he must regret saying this, even David Cameron has said that Scotland could be a successful independent country. If we had retained the revenues that Scotland had generated, Scotland's a very wealthy country, but we haven't been able to retain our wealth to invest in our people and our businesses. If we'd been able to retain our wealth, around about the time of the crash, Scotland would have had about £66 billion credit. Currently, the UK has £1.3 trillion of debt. Scotland's payment to the UK debt by next year is going to be £5 billion. So our payment for the debt that the Westminster government have run up in 2015 will be £5 billion. These are serious numbers. So there's no doubt that we can be a successful independent country. There's no doubt that we have the resources. So I began then to think, goodness me. And then I began to look at the campaign against independence. And I began to realise why they called themselves Project Fear. Because the whole basis of the arguments from Better Together, No Thanks, whatever else, the few other names I think now, so they rebranded a few times, the whole emphasis of their argument is to stimulate fear in people. George Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer of the UK, comes up to Edinburgh to lecture the Scots with some holy alliance between Ed Balls and Danny Alexander, that Scotland will not be able to share the pound in a currency union. That was a shocking thing for a UK Chancellor to do. No discussion, no negotiation, a unilateral decision that if you leave, we're not going to let you share the pound. And we're supposed to be better together? We're supposed to be better together with a partner that would threaten you like that, with no discussion? And the purpose of that threat was clearly to scare the Scottish people. And they then changed the soundbite, vote no, vote no and save the pound. If you vote for independence, you lose the pound. They tried to link the two. because that's all they've got. The Better Together campaign has no positive vision for Scotland. That was a shocking thing to do. Immediately on the back of that, Standard Life then have to make, as any responsible business would, then have to make contingency plans about moving part of their business out of Scotland. The reason they had to do that was because of Osborne's announcement. Standard Life, you may have heard in the news today, have said they may move part of their business out of Scotland if Scotland votes yes. That's as a direct result of the currency threat from George Osborne. Now, I believe that is a bluff. I believe that their attempt there was to try and kill the debate, stone dead, because they haven't thought through the implications for that. So on Sunday morning, after the yes, first time the yes was on a lead in the polls, George Osborne's on Andrew Marr, looking like a rabbit in the headlights. Don't know if you saw the TV programme or not, promising all the powers they're going to give to Scotland. And Marr asked him, what about currency union? Absolutely not. So the Chancellor of the Exchequer for the UK effectively devalued the pound in that conversation with Andrew Marr. No concern for the economy of the UK, no concern for the economy of Scotland and companies that live in Scotland. Here's a Chancellor playing roulette with our economy. That was a shocking partisan thing to do. I'm absolutely shocked by the way Osborne and the British parties have organised this. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be easy. Moving towards independence is not going to be easy. There's going to be some tough negotiations. And yeah, we're going to have some difficulties. But you know what? If you look at the numbers, there's no doubt that we can be successful. But you know, it's not about the numbers. What makes for a successful independent country are the resources the country has. We are rich with resources, not just oil and gas. We are rich with resources, food and drink, tourism, manufacturing. Do you know that Scotland exports more per head than Germany or Japan? The rest of the UK depends on Scotland's exports to prop up their balance of payments deficit. If the currency union doesn't go ahead, the reason there's a run on sterling is not because Scotland's going to vote yes. The reason there's a run on sterling, if Scotland's not in the pound, the rest of the UK's balance of payments will tank, which will have a really negative effect on the UK economy. So the issue about will you be able to afford your mortgages should not be asked to Scots, it should be asked to English people. The UK economy could take a, and we don't want that to happen. They're our partners. We trade with them. They're our friends. We want to be friends and partners with our colleagues and our families across these islands. We want to be interdependent, but to be interdependent, you have to choose your levels of dependency and your levels of relationship. Currently, we're being lectured and we're being threatened by an elite who feel their power evaporating. This is a fantastic opportunity for us in Scotland. One of the things that really excites me about this referendum is the engagement of young people. My eldest daughter's in her early 30s, she's an artist, never been interested in politics, was with Russell Brand, remember the video a few months ago where he says don't vote at all actually, that's the thing to do, to protest. That was her. Don't want to do that, never, I'm not interested, these politicians are all the same. She's now an activist. She's now a member of National Collective. And she's passionate, not about putting a politician into a different... She's passionate about creating the kind of Scotland that she wants for her family and for her kids if she's blessed with them. That's what's fascinating to me. And this is where the media and Westminster have completely lost it. They've completely missed it. This is not a campaign. This is a movement. And I really get this point, and I can get really excited about this, and I really get this point that we can overpower people. We can overpower people with our arguments. I don't want to do that, but I do want to engage people in a dialogue. But folks, this is a fantastic opportunity. We can move away from a dependency relationship to taking our own responsibility. One way of looking at how the current finances work in the UK is a metaphor I use that people have found helpful is, imagine you're still living at home with your parents and you get your first job. Now, I'm old enough to remember that when you got your first job, you took almost all your money home. To, you know the Proclaimers song. You take your pay packet home and you give it to your mother, and your mother then gives you something out of the pay packet. So in other words, you're paying for your board, but actually that's the way it works in Westminster. All of Scotland's revenues from oil, gas, whisky, manufacturing, VAT, tax. All that revenue goes to England, UK, Westminster, and Westminster then take a little amount of it and give us it back as a grant in the Barnett formula that we should be grateful for, which is less actually than we put in for 33 years. So that is a completely dysfunctional way to run an adult economy. So here's our chance. Here's our chance, and if we vote yes, that we can actually begin to take responsibility for our own future in Scotland. We can actually begin to create the kind of society that's fairer, that's more democratic. We can create the kind of society that nurtures entrepreneurial flair. That's what we need, and I'm totally with Chris on that. It's not an either or here. It's not about having some uber right-wing government or some communist regime. Actually, no, we need progressive social democracy and we need entrepreneurial flair. And if we have control of our own economy, that's going to happen. No longer will people have to go to London for the best jobs. No longer will students who are actually coming to study here get their PhDs and then be deported because they can't stay because they can't get a visa. That's ridiculous. We're losing some of our best talent from our universities that have come from foreign countries because of some kind of crazy cap on immigrants that Cameron has to sell to his right-wing Tory party. It's crazy. Scotland wants to embrace people to come and contribute to our economy from all nations. Scotland's a very egalitarian society that welcomes people. So now's our chance. Now's our chance to take our own destiny in our own hands. And I hope, passionately hope, that when we wake up on the 19th that we've done that.
Right in the Port of Leith, they're going to ask the people, is independence best? I'm thinking bonnie Scotland, that the answer could be yes.